SPLA-IO viva!
Viva!
Dr. Machar viva!
Viva!
Foray viva!
Viva!
Forbi viva!
Viva!
Sakatu viva!
Viva!
Dr. Machar viva!
Viva!
If the investigation committee finds that there is a prima facie case against Riek Machar, then they will recommend his being prosecuted before the court. Once he is recommended, found to be proved to be in conflict with the law, and they recommend his trial, then he cannot be tried with his position as the first vice president. He will have to be relieved from his position so that he faces the law.
Well, the dream for the full implementation of the 2018 peace agreement of South Sudan seems to be fading away, as more clashes are being experienced in different parts of the country. In this video, I'm going to tell you about a recent clash that happened just hours ago, where the SPLA-IO forces attacked the SSPDF, that is the South Sudanese People Defense Forces, and in that particular attack, 7 South Sudanese People Defense Forces lost their lives. Well, this is bona fide. If you haven't subscribed, kindly subscribe and hit the notification button so that when I release something new on South Sudan, you get notified as soon as possible. Well, just a few hours ago, the SPLA-IO waged a surprise attack against the South Sudanese People Defense Forces, and in that attack, 7 South Sudanese People Defense Forces troops lost their lives. Well, this assault took place around 5 a.m. in Monobu village, approximately just 8 miles from Maridi town along the road to Mambe. Well, according to Alfred Miri, the Maridi County Commissioner, the SPLA-IO fighters stormed an SSPDF barracks that had been established recently in the area. Well, it is important to note that this unit, the South Sudanese People Defense Forces unit that was attacked by the SPLA-IO forces, were deployed just days earlier to patrol the Maridi-Juba road following repeated security incidents. The troops were caught by surprise, and the attack marks a renewed escalation of insecurity in Maridi County, which has experienced intermittent clashes between government and opposition SPLA-IO forces. Well, this comes amid a broader impasse over the implementation of the 2018 peace agreement, the so-called revitalized agreement of South Sudan that was reached in 2018 to stop the civil war that was ongoing in the country, where the government forces were fighting against the opposition forces. These renewed clashes that we are seeing right now in South Sudan are as a result of the house arrest of the first vice president and the leader of the SPLA-IO forces, Riek Machar, that was orchestrated by the government of the day in the month of March. Since then, we've not heard about anything from Dr. Riek Machar, and the forces, the SPLA-IO forces, are now reacting to the silence that has been given by the government and the action by the government to go ahead and hold the first vice president under house arrest. And that is not all, because the government of the day has gone further to demote leaders that were appointed by the first vice president, Riek Machar, and the government has appointed its own leaders, including the governors. Now, it was signed in that revitalized agreement that there will be a quota of the governors that will be appointed by Dr. Riek Machar's party, as well as there will be a quota that will be appointed by the government of the day. Now, all that is being put to side as the government of the day is taking charge of all the appointments, as well as working with factions that are said to come out of SPLA-IO, as well as the SPLM-IO, and now they are forming their own coalitions that are now colluding with the government. But many are saying that the faction that is led by Stephen Parkwall is not the original SPLM-IO that is supposed to be working with the government. And that is why we are seeing that despite the announcements, the appointments, and the coalition and working together of Stephen Parkwall's party with the government of the day, still there are some clashes in different parts of South Sudan waged by the SPLA-IO forces who are loyal to the first vice president, Riek Machar. And mind you, in this 2018 peace agreement, both of these parties were to unify their forces to make one South Sudanese People Defense Forces to be a national army that doesn't have an outfit of either the people in government or the people in opposition. But that seems to be far from being achieved, because right now the factions are very, very much alive. And we can see the SPLA-IO forces fighting brutally against the South Sudanese Defense Forces, now leading to deaths of the South Sudanese Defense Forces. This is not an isolated case, because just days ago we were talking about another incident that happened in Upper Nile, where more South Sudanese Defense Forces were attacked by the SPLA-IO and they lost their lives. These are serious moves and operations that are being conducted by both parties against each other at a time when the country is in heightened tensions politically and also militarily, to avoid yet another civil war from erupting in South Sudan. And mind you, this unification of the forces was supposed to usher in a general election in South Sudan. South Sudan has never gone through a general election in the country to elect its own leaders, and this was the moment that the country was supposed to start preparing for the 2026 elections. But this seems far to be achieved because of the ongoing political crisis in the country. The country is literally split into two, between people who are supporting the government and those who are supporting the opposition. In fact, there are some militia who are supporting both sides. Talk about the Agwelek, talk about the White Army, who are armed and are supporting different sides in the country, and they are actively fighting against each other. Now, just recently, allies very close to the first vice president wrote to the United States urging President Donald Trump to appoint an individual to overlook the cases of South Sudan and Sudan, mentioning that both of these countries are facing similar crises and that they should all be addressed the same. Because right now, we're also privy to the information that there are some fighters from South Sudan who are assisting the RSF. And of course, there are also people who are also assisting the Sudanese army. And this is vice versa. There are some collusions between the forces that are in Sudan and the forces that are in South Sudan. Well, despite the crisis and the chaos that is happening in different parts of the country, the South Sudanese government is still continuing with the normal running of the government and continuing with the erosion of people who are supporting Dr. Riek Machar from the government, and this is causing more anger, not only among the SPLA-IO troops, but also from people who are supporting Dr. Riek Machar. Well, I will continue to keep you informed of the latest of what will come out from South Sudan regarding this new escalation between the SPLA-IO forces and the South Sudanese Defense Forces. Keep it bona fide.